Blackstar HT20 Studio head. This isn't in for repair, it works perfectly. I bought this off eBay and I paid about 120 quid for it, $120. I'm going to use this amp, the cabinet, the chassis and whatever else I can use out of this amp. So remember the amplifier we made from television tubes, the prototype that I've been working on and off, keep tweaking away. I'm going to build a proper one, a proper turret board. I'm going to see if these transformers in here are going to be useful. We may find we've got way too much HT and the primary impedance of the transformer may not match for what we want, because of course this amp's got two AL34s in. So why have I bought this amplifier? Well, I started looking at online for a decent cabinet and chassis, and they were really expensive, and by the time I'd done I'd be nearly into £400. Now I don't really care what my amps look like. These are really good looking cabinets, they've got good solid handles on them. I've got some spare parts to come out of it that I can use in other projects as well. So for instance, a set of AL34s in there, they're useful, they're well useful, even second hand. They're, you know, 25 quid for a set of those because they cost a fortune now. I should take the badge off, that may be useful should someone come in and they've lost their badge, they want a Blackstar badge. So of course I've got all the knobs on there. The knobs, I mean, to buy knobs for an amp now is, you know, another 10 quid. I've got the switch, don't know about the pilot light, all the sockets and everything. So let's just have a look at the back. Just spin him round there. So none of this we'll be using, effects loop, foot switch, line out, speaker sockets we will. Now if this is like all the other Blackstars, these will be mounted on a PC board. I can't remember last time I looked in here, and I have been in one of these before once. Possibly a fuse holder there, a couple of fuse holders which would be useful. I think they'll probably be on the board though, and probably so will the main socket there. So what we're going to do is see how much we can actually get out of this amplifier, not just what parts I can use on this amplifier, which I call the P valve amp because of the PCL PL84, PCC85 and PCF80 or PCF82 that I've got in it at the moment. So we're going to get inside this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run some tests as well. So what tests I'm going to run, I'm going to see what tappings are on the transformer, on the power transformer, and what voltages we've got there, to see which of any of that we can use. And then I'm also going to do a turns ratio test on this output transformer and see where the primary impedance is. Right, I've just took it out of the cabinet. I thought I might as well save messing around. So we've got a couple of preamp tubes in this, and we've got these EL34s. So it's the transformers we're more interested in. Not a very big output transformer for a 20 watt amp, that really. Here's an output transformer for a WEM Dominator, 15 watt, and you can see one of the reasons why those amps sound so good. That's like Big Brother at the side of that, and it's dwarfing it. So not brilliant, but I mean the amps sound okay, so I don't know. Then we've got a couple of AL34s in there. They're tube amp ductor. Let's see what these are, if we can get one of them out. They're not easy to get out of these with them recessing them like they do. Let's have a look. Oh dear. Sockets are nice and tight, and they're tube amp ductor as well. So this has had a complete retube. Let's get it upside down. There's a bit of information on that transformer. Usual thing, 230 volts. That's another thing we need to look at as well. Is this suffering from the same symptoms as the Blues Junior? And it's set at 230 volts. Let's just lift that up over there and have a look. I think some of these Blackstars, and somebody quote me on this if I'm right or wrong, but I think some of these boards are obsolete now on these really early Blackstars. And of course there's certain things on there that go, and if you can't get them, the surface mounted stuff, if you can't get them off the boards or get replacements for them, then it's a new board for your amp. And obviously I've got a new board, well, not a new one, but I've got a board, so that's worth saving for any future, you know, repairs. And somebody comes in and they've got, because it's interesting to find out how old this is as well, if there's any dates on it, you know. There might be, who knows. So all that's coming out of there, and we're going to be left with that chassis. And really it's just a larger version of that Blackstar HT5 chassis that we used as a prototype. That chassis is far too small, and I had to use those tag boards like they have in the Vox AC30s, and I really don't like those. And with it being a prototype amp, and I've been constantly soldering things in and out, they get a bit untidy. So now I've more or less got that how I want it. I want to do a proper job in this. So this is the turret board we're going to use in this amp, and I've got some, you can see there on that one, and I've got some turrets that bolt in the back. I've got a spring washer on there, and you put the nut on, nip them up. If you want to put some in this, well, you can't put them in the centres because it's not a centre hole, but you want to add any extras, so you're going across there. So that's what we're going to use for that. And you see that's a tidy bit of kit. So let's get some power into this and see what we're faced with. So the first thing I want to just check out is this output transformer, what wires go where and what. I'm looking at this red wire, black wire and brown wire. These are the three. One of these is center tap. I'm guessing it's that one because that trace goes off in that direction. This trace goes to here, and this trace goes to this tube socket here. And if we just do that, you can see there we've got continuity between those. If we go down there, we've got that the same, which means that this is center tap. Let's test that theory. So we've got 227 on there, and on this one we've got 194. There's a little imbalance between those. They're not exactly close, are they? They're a fair way out, those. Be difficult to get a match there, although it's not critical. If that was an hi-fi amp though, that would be critical, but not as much on a guitar amp. But it's still, you'd still expect it to be a bit closer than that, wouldn't you really? It's about 30 ohms, it's not the end of the world. Right, I've got this amp plugged in now. You can see the pilot lights on there. This amp will be silent until the jack socket is plugged into it, because it has J-FETs and things that shut down the channel. So if we plug in now, there we go, built-in reverb. See, as soon as you pull that out, the amp's dead. There's nothing, no background hiss or anything. So let's do some voltage readings first of all. So let's see what we're getting onto the plate. Let's try and put this somewhere where you can see it. Should be okay up there, even though it's switched on. No big deal. See how well you can see that there. Let me just check that, see how well you can see it. Well, right, see how well you can see that. 380 volts, so that is quite a bit more than we need. A considerable more. It's on the screens. The volt difference. So about 382 volts. Let's try pin 5. Let's try it on there. Negative 44. So this is a fixed bias amp as well. It's not cathode biased. I've just done another reading of the impedance on these on this output transformer, and we've got 194 on black and we've got 228 on red, so we've got an offset of 34 ohms there. So I'm going to bias this amplifier, just see what the bias is and have a little look. So I think this is what they call the shunt method that I always use. So I'm going to go on black to brown and I should get a volts drop. And I got nothing there at the minute. I wonder if that's because there's no cable in it, you know. Most annoying. I've not worked on one of these before. I know that sounds daft, doesn't it? Can't get a reading because the cable's not in. But there you go, absolutely right. Look, now we've got, you can't really see that meter, can you? See if we can prop it up. No, you can't see it at all. Well, dang me. See where we can put it. Right, let's just ease that round there. Now you can. There we go. So yeah, watch with the lead out. Can't get a reading, look. Pop the lead in. And it's 10.1. It's a bit jumping around. Let that settle. I think I'm going to call that 10.25. So there, that's weird. So if you don't plug the lead in, you can't get any readings. I'm not even going to think how that's wired up. That'll blow my mind. So that's our volts drop across one side of the transformer. And let's try the other side of the transformer. So that'll be red to brown instead of black to brown. And we've got 12.56 on that side. So now what we do is we divide the volts drop with the resistance of each side of the transformer. So you'll be pleased to know that my large calculator has turned up again, the one with the sports brand covered over. Other sports brands are available. So let's do one side. 10.2 divide by 194, that's the black wire side, and I've got 52 milliamps there going on. 52 milliamps. So let's write that down. Now let's try the other side. So we have got 12.56 divided by 228, and that gives me 55 milliamps. A bit of an offset there again, not ideal, but there's a bit. 55 milliamps. So what we're going to do now, we're going to check the voltage on the plate. Let's just check them both, because you never know with this amp 333 on there, 335 on there. So notice there's two, you can see here that these two trim pots there. So I'm guessing that this is, there's a slight discrepancy there. We need to check that, don't we? But 335, 332, 333. So I'm guessing that these are biased individually. So let's look at this one, because this is the black wire one. Call that 335. So we're going to times 0.052. We're going to times that by 335, 17.4. So that's spot on there, because 17.5 is 70%. Remember, this is fixed bias. So let's try the other one. What did we say that was? 333. We'll go for that. And that was 52 milliamps. 0.055. I think I got that right way around. Times 333. And that's 18.3. So that one's a little over. Not a lot. So I'm curious with that. And I'm going to have a bit of a delve. So let's see what, let's put that on there. Try that one, 335. Try that one. Yep. Pop that back, because that was exact. See, 335. There we go. And the other side must be that one then. Yep. So let's pop that one up, just up. There we go. So that's how that works, that bias on there. So individual trim pot for each, which means you can match them up exactly. It's a good idea. You don't often see that on amps. I've seen that on odd amplifiers many moons ago, but I've not seen it for a number of years. This board is in full working order, and that's one other thing I want to check, because when I take this board out, somebody comes along and says, oh, I've got a Blackstar HT Studio, I need a new board for it, and I can say, yeah, I've got one that works, instead of taking it out and saying to someone it works and then finding out it don't when they've put it in. That's not really fair on them, is it? So we just need to check this thoroughly and make sure it's all working. So that's interesting. Now, do you know, something's just occurred to me there, and I bet it's occurred to some of you lot before. The plate voltage there is 380 volts. You can see that crawling up, and the reason for that is, just come to me that as reason for that is that of course when you pull the jack socket out, it shuts down shuts down, it's like it's going into standby, and so therefore it's a form of standby, and what's happening there, the tubes aren't conducting anymore, and so the voltage is increased on there, because we've now got 382 volts. And remember, I'm saying, oh, I think that's a little bit too much voltage. But now if I pop this lead back in, look what happens. 335. Pretty instant as well, that is. 380. So 382 volts. Plug the lead in. That is more closer to the voltage we need. So we may be able to use that transformer after all. One of the subscribers to the channel, when I was doing that, the WEM with the 6P 1.5P tubes, suggested putting a 180 ohm sag resistor in on the power stage. So that's something, that's another option we could use to bring the voltage down as well. I don't know what anybody else thinks of that. That might be a good idea. So leave something in the comments about that. Sag resistors. Right, I found the AC and it's those two red ones there, there and there. As we go on to those, you can see we've got 289 volts. So that's the AC coming in. 285 times 1.4 is 399 according to that, and that'll be about right. In fact, that's spot on right. So 399. So but when we test on here to the anode, oops, we've got 382. So something's drawing down somewhere. That of course will be the transformer that's drawing it down. There'll be a voltage drop. We can check that actually if we go onto the center tap, can't we? Do 383 on the center. Yeah, brown's the center tap. 383 on the center tap. 381. 381. So something's still drawing that down a little bit according to that maths. That maths is normally very accurate. So there is still something drawing that down slightly, but not by much, by probably about 10 or 12 volts. So that's now given me some figures on whether I can use these transformers or not. And I think I can get away with using that power transformer. More so with this sag resistor idea. I have to say some of the advice and comments that get left, really grateful for them, because some of you guys are really knowledgeable, far more than I am, and I'm really grateful for everyone's help when I'm doing things. So the only thing I've got to do now is the turns ratio test on the output transformer, and to do that we'll switch off now, so we don't need it. We don't need any voltage for this from the amp anyway. So we need to remove these two wires. We don't need the center tap. I might still just unplug it though, so it's not plugged into anything. So we need these two wires here, which is what's going to the anodes, or it won't be when I pull the clips off. And then we've got these wires here, and these are the impedances for each of these sockets for the tap-ins. So we've got what looks like a ground. Is there green and yellow? So that must be a ground, and we can test that to see if it is. And then we've got 3 tap-ins, so presuming they're 4, 8 and 16. So we need to check that. First thing we need to do is check to see whether that pop that back there where you can see it again. It's a bit awkward. First thing we need to do is see if that is ground, and yes it is. So that's I think that's coming from the transformer. It might not be, actually. It might not be. No, it's not. Of course it's not. No, I can see where that's going. No, that's not the case. That's probably just putting a ground on these sockets, so otherwise you get hum normally. So we need to spin it round and have a look at the back and see what information's on there. Right, so if we look here, we've got 1 8 ohm, 1 16 ohm, or 2 16 ohms, which I presume, I'm not quite sure why they'd have 2 16 ohms, obviously make 8. So anyway, we know we've got an 8 ohms tapping and a 16 ohms tapping there. So we've got three wires there. Let's see if that black one is coming out of the transformer. Of course, I'm just assuming it is. So we'll look under here. Under here, yes it is. I think. Yeah. So we've got 3 wires coming out of there. One is going to be a ground and the other 2 are going to be tap-ins, I would have thought. So let's pull those off. Let's turn it back round first. So this is a turns ratio test we're doing, and I want to find out what turns are on each side of this output transformer so I can calculate what the primary impedance is. Now there's a 16 ohm and an 8 ohm tapping, I think, on there. So what we do is we feed AC into each side of the primary, not the center tap, each side of the primary. And then we have another meter monitoring the voltage that's coming out the secondary windings, and we're going to test each winding separately. So the meter on the right is measuring the secondary voltage. When that reaches 1 volt, whatever is on this meter in volts will be the turns ratio. That's how it works. If you want to watch that in more detail, you probably need to visit Uncle Doug's website. He's a much better teacher than I am at these things. So let's begin. So if you watch the meter on the left now, we've got 8 volts crawling, and you can see that the one on the right now is coming up towards 1 volt. And if we just keep going with that, you see now 15, 16. Oops, we've gone over. Fail. And it's a bit tricky with this variac just to get it 100% right. There we go, virtually there, 9.98, and it's jumping around a little. 15.7, 15.75 I think we had on there when it hit 1 volt. So that's one side, so we need to write that down, don't we? 15.75. Now let's check the other one. Now, as there's only 1 volt on here, I'm going to do this live, and I'm going to remove that one and pop it on there. And now you can see that that's dropped below 1 volt, so we're going to go up again. Whoops, just come back a bit. There we go, 21 point, and I think we'll call that 22. We're splitting hairs otherwise, and it's 22 we'll do. So 22 to 1 and 16 to 1. Be near enough. Near enough for jazz. Now we've tested the black wire to the brown wire and the black wire to the green wire there. But now we're going to check the red wire to the green wire. So we've tested all combinations, because I have no idea how this thing is wired. So now you can see we've got 22 on there, but we've only got 0.3 on that one. Now sometimes when you do this, you'll find that at least one of the combinations is pretty useless, because what we could be testing now is two windings as opposed to one single winding and ground. We could now be testing 2 windings. We keep going, and you can see that's quite a high reading now. $56 to 1 with red and green. So there we go. So now we need to do some calculations. Right, so I've got those figures there. So let's start with this 56 to 1, which I'm thinking is a no-go. So 56 times 56. So what we're doing here, we're squaring the turns ratio, timesing it by itself. So 56 times 56 comes out at 3,136. So that is telling me that particular combination of wires, which was red and green, will be useless. And the reason for that is that if I even times that by 8, which is 8 ohms, that comes out at 25k. Well, there's no way on this planet that that's 25k. And if I times it by 16, it'll be double that. Right, let's have a look at at 22 to 1. So 22 times 22 squared is 484. If we times that by 8, that comes out at 3,872, which is near as damn it is to swearing, is a 4K primary. That was the red and black wire. So now let's take the black and green wire, which is 15.75 to 1. So 15 times 15.75 times, so I don't have a square button on this calculator, it's far too basic. That comes out at 248, and if we times that by 16, we get 3,969. So again, 4K. So that's telling me that red and black are 8 ohms and black and green is 16 ohms. We've identified what all the wires do, so we think obviously 56 to 1 came to nothing, so we know that the black is now the negative for these two tap-ins. So we know that red and black together are 8 ohms at 4K, and we know that green and black are 16 ohms at 4K. Those two red ones there on this board are AC out on the secondary. These are AC out for the heaters, 6.3. These wires in this block, there is 2 black ones and a green one. They are for the bias, and they came in at somewhere around 21, 22 volts, but obviously that's being rectified and smoothed. It's got to still convert it to DC, and that's bumped up the voltage, and no doubt they've got voltage regulators on it as well, because I think we had about negative 43 on there if I remember. Right, so I think that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the people that are subscribing to the channel, and you all take care, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye bye for now.